Let's talk about sensory differences in autism. This comes from the book called Designing Comprehensive Interventions for High Functioning Individuals with Autism Spectrum Disorder, the Ziggurat model. And I'll show you the cover of this in a bit. So, sensory differences, abnormalities in processing, incoming sensations such as sight, smell, sound, touch, taste, pain, and temperature are experienced by 70 to 80% of the ASD population. So, a lot, most. It's something that we can definitely see, and it is part of the Oregon eligibility criteria as hyper or hyposensitivity to sensory stimulation. In some, the differences affect only one sensory area. In others, multiple senses are impacted. The differences may be expressed through hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity, distortions of perceptions, general sensory overloads, difficulties using more than one sense at a time, or confusion of channels, such as visual responses to sounds. Sensory differences may make even routine daily experiences especially challenging. For those who are hypersensitive to sound, for example, the hum of an air conditioner or the chatting of peers may be distracting or even a painful experience. Hypersensitivity to touch may result in resistance to wearing shoes or perceiving an accidental tap from a peer as an intentional push. So it's much more heightened for them. Similarly, aversions to or preoccupation with smells may result in difficulty participating in routine activities. For example, the smell of chemicals in a department store may be so averse that shopping becomes a miserable experience, or the smell of perfume may lead to reluctance to interact with the person wearing it. Because of hypersensitivities, crowded or large places or loud places are often especially stressful. Um, Undersensitivity or hyposensitivity may also be problematic. For example, failure to perceive pain may lead to lack of treatment for serious illness or injuries. Sensory abnormalities may result in an increase in the expression of social, communicative, and receptive symptoms. A brief summary of common sensory differences are listed below. So in this book, they talk about they give examples of some different sensory differences. I know an adult with autism that, for example, he was not able to perceive the pain and he actually had like an acute um, gallbladder issue, and really he could not feel the pain and had a really hard time giving information to the doctor. So it really led to a very delayed reaction in getting the care he needed. I really love this visual that's in that same book that I just talked about, the Designing Comprehensive Interventions for High Functioning Individuals with Autism Spectrum Disorder, the Ziggurat model. This is so helpful. And I really would love all educators to take into account the sensory and biological needs of individuals with autism, because this model, similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, focuses first on attending to biological and physiological needs before any type of cognitive load comes into play. So, for individuals with autism, this is the base layer. So, we're looking at making sure that we provide a sensory diet, monitor and address environmental stressors. So, those sounds, light, proximity and personal space and textures and movement needs, and also monitor and address appetite, hunger, activity level. So, is the student feeling fatigued or hyper? Their posture and movement. So, we want to think about flexible seating here. And then their medical needs. Are they showing up to school sick? All of these factors are going to play into how well they're going to do and if they're going to be able to be in the least restrictive environment. So a lot of times we'll have teachers that just want to start here at skills to teach, and they really want to just start getting into the cognitive piece. But we have to really start here and think about what they need in their sensory and biological area of need. So this chart comes from the Ziggurat model's underlying characteristics checklist, UCC. And so these are the areas of sensory that we want to look for so we can help program plan and make sure we're addressing these sensory needs. Does the student respond in an unusual manner to sounds, for example, ignores sounds, or overreacts to sudden, unexpected noises, high-pitched, continuous sounds, or complex / multiple noises? Do they respond in an unusual manner to pain? For example, do they overreact or seem unaware of an illness or injury? Do they respond in an unusual manner to taste? For example, do they resist certain textures, flavors, and brands? Do they respond in an unusual manner to light or color? So, for example, are they focused on shiny items, shadows, reflections, shows preference or strong dislikes for certain colors? Do they respond in an unusual manner to temperature? Do they respond in an unusual manner to smell? So, for example, they may comment on smells that others do not detect. Do they seek activities that provide touch, pressure, or movement? For example, swinging, hugging, or pacing. Do they avoid activities that provide touch, pressure, or movement? For example, do they resist wearing certain types of clothing? Strong dislikes to be dirty, resist hugs? Do they make noises such as humming or singing frequently? I know a common one that a lot of parents talk about in this one about resisting certain types of clothing is the kids that resist wearing tags on their clothing, and they insist that the parents cut off all the tags because they can't stand that scratchy feel. All right, so those are the sensory differences from the UCC. So this is the cover of that Ziggurat model book. The authors are Dr. Ruth Aspie and Dr. Barry Grossman.